welcome to Castles of Runeterra trailer review for Arcane Season 2, the first trailer, not the teaser, but an actual trailer we got surprised with. I'm your host, Ryan, here with the other host, Hedge.
Yeah, and anyone who's been listening to us for a long time, you know how excited we are for this. So let's just dive into it.
Yeah, and before we dive into it, so it's been a long time, so obviously spoilers are kind of fair game now, but we do have a multitude of Arcane episodes. So if you don't know what's going on yet, just go listen to those if you haven't watched stuff yet before you listen to this, because we are going to talk about exactly where it picks up, because they don't waste any time.
They really don't.
We'll give you a little bit of time here. Okay, and your time's up. And we're going to start talking about the trailer. So, trailer kicks off, and we start with a voice clip from the lady herself, Mel's mother, and Noxian warlord, Ambissa Medarda.
Man, and like having this open up with Medarda, like, you know, basically just like, like the Noxian way is how we're going to deal with this. As far as like with the rest of the imagery behind it too is insane, because like you've got Mel like also kind of like gearing up in it, but then it's also just like the depiction of like Caitlyn and Vi like going full on enforcer too, right? Like it's like, oh no.
the line specifically is your counsel is dead, you will have justice. And when she says that and she puts on the mask, one thing you may have noticed is that her hair is braided. And if you've watched mixed martial arts or anything like that, whenever someone who has, 4C hair like we do braids it up, it's to protect it for some action that's about to happen. That's props to Riot for getting that detail, because I immediately noticed. I was like, oh, she braided her hair. She's going to war. I mean, you have the face paint representation there. And we know, Hetch and I touched on this, that the way season 1 ended with a terror attack on the council specifically, with her being in town, this is the worst situation, because you have a power vacuum of not only the military component of what's going on, but you also have an ambassador in town from a place who loves a good fight. And she also has a conflict of interest with her daughter being a part of the council, which will lead into the bloodlust of doing things like Hedge said, the Noxian.
Yeah, and it's very important to harp on the Noxian way too, because again, like it ended with the terror attack on the council, aka the people that would have tried to there are people who would try to go for a diplomatic approach even in dramatic situations like that, and all those people were the ones that were targeted. So the power vacuum in question is in the space of the people that would actually try to be level-headed. So we're clearly going full Noxian in a second.
Yeah. So then we get this shot of Caitlyn, who seems to be assembling some military response / strike team to respond to what happened. And we then get the shot that shook the internet, even though, I mean, we all know, which is Vi in police uniform, which we know better. We know that this is essentially a conscription type situation where Vi's not willingly joining the police force. She doesn't believe what they believe in, but we do know that she now currently has a relationship with Caitlyn. And with what just happened, this is a bridge too far for Vi, who's currently in between worlds, per se, to not be like, okay, I'm putting my hat in with the police force because they have good intentions, right? Like we need to stop this. This can't be the way things go. And obviously we'll see how that plays out and what Riot does with that message. We don't doubt they'll do the right thing.
It's so funny to me though, as far as like the internet, like just running away with the image and just like kind of going off to like, with the ACAB approach, because
it's like, wait, give it time. Let the story play out.
Let the story play out. And it's like, even if you're not like super nerdy like we are, and it's like, no, Vi is a cop. Like, this is a prequel story. What is wrong with y'all? Because I like, when I pulled up the trailer, like the first recommended video that I got on YouTube after it was someone reacting to it like, how could Vi have gone so wrong? And it's like, wait, what do you mean? This has always been the path. But like that
Go
argument,
listen to all of our episodes pre-Arcane about it as well
yeah,
if you need more details
yes,
on.
yes, pre-Arcane, go listen to them. But also you could listen to the Arcane ones because Arcane does a good job. Like season 1 does a good job of like painting this picture for us to
Yeah.
begin with, because Vi not only has a relationship with Caitlyn that they're establishing, or that they did establish in season 1, but it's also that like Vi was pulled out of prison because Vi is related to Powder.
Yeah.
All right. Like it's like, hey, like we need your help to go find your sister. All right. Now your sister is a straight up terrorist. You're either going back to prison or you're working a job for us. Like we've all seen pop media where this kind of stuff happens.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
We literally just came off the heels of what, like 2 Suicide Squad movies?
Yeah.
How is this a concept that y'all aren't getting?
And that just goes to show that Arcane, being as good as it was, bridged the gap of media where you had people that are like, this show's amazing, I love whatever this is, but I have no idea about anything else other than this show. So that's what makes sense. But as we know in real life, and you guys know our opinion on the police force, especially in America, and they target people like Vi, right? They target people with that background, with those forms of aggression, and try to put that energy into their direction.
Yep.
And where they want it to go. So this is a very realistic plot line. That's not surprising.
And if you watch season 1, the fact that there's a realistic plot line is not surprising at all either, because like season 1 was fantastic as far as just really painting the picture of how a lot of these political intrigue stories go. So the setup's there. The setup is already there. Like just watch it.
So then we get some lines here where they essentially map out the plan for the show, which is their goal is to enter Zon. Once again, we know about police forces entering another territory to defend, quote unquote. Enter Zon, find Jinx, disrupt the Shimmer trade, and then disband any remnants of Silco's alliance. And that's when we get a shot of Singed. Which is, we know he's there. He's just not in Singed form yet. He's still doing his experimentation type beat, right? And then we get some shots of obviously burning city, explosions, attacks, but also graffiti depicting Jinx as a revolutionary leader. That's unique.
Yes, that was, and honestly, as far as like, especially not only just watching season 1, but as much of like the lore that we've got to cover on the show, like pertaining to Jinx, like that is very surprising and also just terrifying for the future of Zon.
Yes.
Because like sure, like the spirit of revolution is very much alive. That is how the very first opening minutes of season 1 starts, is the spirit of revolution. And on this show, we appreciate the spirit of revolution.
Always.
Do we really want to follow Jinx though? Is that really is this really the banner we're going behind? Like just full IRA, baby.
So it's one of those things where ideally, when you look at the revolutionary aspect of Zon, it's not really driven by Jinx, but she's being used as a symbol for it, which that's where you get the more intrigue in a plot line, right? Because ultimately you would want someone like Echo to lead that type of revolution. And that's, if you remember, we had a battle scene where essentially those two ideas were clashing on a bridge in a very beautiful Sakuga moment. But I don't want to digress. Speaking of the man himself, we do then get a shot of first Heimendinger alive, cloaked and laying low, which is something he does from time to time since he's been around forever. And then we get a shot of Echo, kind of just a full-on front shot, before we get a shot of Warwick. Finally, I think it's the first time we've seen him, and it's still even like a shadowed in the darkness. He's jumping out, but it's Warwick. Like it's always been like Warwick Singed, like all the stuff has been shown in season 1, in a way. So we're not getting any more of that. It's just them reinforcing, hey, these are going to be big players now in this whole, hey, everything is burning, which makes sense. This is the time to introduce those type of characters.
I mean, as far as like with off the trailer, like that's one of those especially getting like the images of Singed and Warwick specifically. Like that's one of the things that makes me want to go back and listen to our own episodes myself, just because I know that these were characters that we were excited for the possibility of them showing up. Like when Arcane was first announced and when Arcane finally started dropping in its segments. So now I kind of want to go back and listen to like, okay, how much do we get right? Because, you know, I could go lord that for some clout on the Reddits. Let's go.
Yeah.
But we also got to see, like, you know, when Echo was introduced, it was Echo, like his introduction is him kind of like, you know, only with facial reactions, but we get to see his reaction to seeing Jinx as, you know, the symbol of revolution for Zaun now.
Yeah.
So there's definitely going to still be like some clashing of ideals there too, because now, unlike season 1, we know season 1 ended with Heimerdinger finding Echo and being quite impressed with Echo.
Yeah.
So the fact that Heimerdinger's still running, like hiding low, who's going to be better at hiding him than Echo? Like, so you know that relationship's going to be building. So it'll be very interesting to see how, like, if Jinx and Echo end up butting heads again, how it's going to play out this time now that Echo has a bit of tutorship on his side. But also Jinx has got a lot less powder on her side, because we get to that part is towards the end of the trailer.
Yeah, and you know, I break the metaphor here, but there are 3 sides of the same coin, which is Vi, Jinx, and Echo. And we talk about this a lot in our other episodes. Go check those out. And you know, obviously, Vi's the one trying to change things from within. Jinx is the complete chaos trying to overtake the quote unquote order, and Echo is in between the two, and finding himself, and ultimately Heimer is going to be, or we think he's going to be, the vehicle for the rational side of his revolution, right? Because Echo is very angry. He's angrier than Vi was, not as angry as Jinx, which is allowing him, and he also has more people around him where the other two are essentially isolated on opposite sides. Like Vi's alone now in Piltover doing her thing. Jinx is obviously alone post Silco shenanigans, but Echo still has his crew. Right, he still has a semblance of organization around him, which will allow him to establish. I mean, go look at history. All right. I always want to end this with saying, like, you know, Sic Semper Tyrannis. Go look at history. It's there. Ryan's doing a good job. But we get the final shot here with Jinx and Vi showdown, which obviously the internet loved. Everybody's waiting for. Not much to say there, but the thing that did catch everybody's attention, which is not really related to the trailer, is that this is the final quote unquote season of Arcane. And they got ahead of that immediately. So like you can tell it was a case where Riot wanted to bait people a little bit. Like everybody's like, final season, we just got started, so that everyone would pay attention. And then immediately they released their dev update for League of Legends. And in the dev update, there was a whole Arcane section. And they started off by saying, no. This is the end for like this Piltover story. Arcane will continue. We're already working on a ton of shit. Please don't attack us. We promise.
Like when you put up, you know, the final chapter, you better have your ducks in a row, because we are not the people that are going to respond like calmly when we see final chapter. We're the ones that post memes online of, you know, get in the fetal position and cry because our favorite story's over.
Exactly.
But yeah, like as far as like the end, like getting to see, you know, like the Vi and Jinx setup, which is, you know, like that's going to be great no matter how it goes down. I could already tell like that's going to be fun.
All the money will be spent.
I myself, as far as like towards the end of my League of Legends days, played a ton of Caitlyn, so I was super stoked to see like Caitlyn now with her rifle and getting to see her like firing off a Hextech round with it. It's like, okay, yeah, like that's the Caitlyn that I know. Let's go. There's just a lot to be excited for. Like we get the Warwick and Singe drop. Like we've still got all the big major characters are present. Like it's going to be crazy. And I'm wondering, like there's a part of me that wants to get like more excited with like maybe there's going to be some other like cameos that they didn't tease in this trailer.
Yeah.
But last time, as far as like with season 1, we didn't really get like a lot of big surprises. Like Singed was the only surprise that we got last season.
Yeah.
So I doubt like there's going to be like any like other really big surprises, but who knows? Maybe, because like there's a lot of people being present here. Because I mean, like seeing Noxus presence at all is a surprise, right?
Yeah, and that's essentially where I think they're going next, which would be smart. This is the so that's essentially the update right now. Is me and Hetch just kind of chatting for a bit. This will be shorter, but um, the first thing that comes to mind we've talked about before is Noxus is the most rational place to go, regardless of how this ends. We know it doesn't end the story overall. It will still be chaos. There will still be ramifications, and for this to get back to Noxus makes sense with Ambessa being there. Ambessa now being in a role of this power vacuum to essentially drive a military operation gives you an easy path directly into Noxus. And I think that would make sense
100%.
because it's different enough while maintaining, because you can take the themes of this season, drive those directly into your next season with Noxus, and then shift into the Noxian stuff. Whether you want to go back in history and talk about the Mortal Bastion or introduce, blood mages and all that stuff, but then you get to establish the Black Rose, which then opens up more, right? So
Yeah.
it's like a flower blooming, and this is the first petal that
and-
makes sense to go into.
And like you don't even have to like really dive into like the Black Rose. Like I think it would
Yeah.
honestly be a mistake to dive into the Black Rose right away.
Yeah, no.
Just because of like how
You have to do
secretive.
it mysteriously.
Yeah,
you have to do it
but-
in a way where it's constantly something happening in the background.
100%. But like we do get to see, as far as with Arcane, and this is something we talked about when we were covering season 1, the fact that like this is definitely like a prequel in essence when you look at the characters, especially characters like Victor and Jace and Caitlyn, who are all clearly much younger right now, and for specifically one of them much more human. So we do know that this is, early in their lives before like we get to know them as the champions, which means if we look at the earlier lives of some of the biggest Noxian names, we probably will get to see like some story surrounding Borum Darkwill.
Yeah,
Like,
timeline wise, that would make sense.
because, and like, can you imagine getting to watch the story of Swain's rise? Dude, that could be a whole season right there of just Swain like stepping up in power and getting to the point of where we get to see Swain, Darius, Draven.
You think
those
Ambessa's terrifying? It's that type of beat where you have this character who's so menacing. And you're like, what could be worse? And it's like, oh. And then you can also have a case where you have, Heimer in a situation where he's lying low. He could escape to Noxus. And he could have play Nox because he's been around so long that he would have an overlapping history with a lot of players in Noxus.
And I would love that, because I do love like that whole story angle of like the storyteller, right? Like Heimerdinger could end up just being the vessel that is like the eyes of the audience. Because, from like we did establish, like from Noxus you can go anywhere, and it's not just because of like the influence of the Black Rose. It's just Noxus in itself is the empire. Like they are the colonists. They are trying to go everywhere, so they are everywhere. Like we could go from any other point there, and I think it would be cool to have Heimerdinger just be like the eyes of that. Like for anyone that's fans of the game series Total War, like Total War always tells the story from the eyes of the advisor, and the advisor is like the person that's also like the tooltip in the game, like giving you advice for when you play the game. And specifically for the Warhammer Total War games, like the advisor is just going to each of these people like, hey, you've got the best shot to keep like all of this together, so I'm gonna help you, even though you're just a bunch of Skaven rats. But
exactly,
I think Heimerdinger is like the perfect character to fit that, because he doesn't have the responsibilities like Rise has, right? Like Rise is literally keeping the planet together, and keeping it from blowing itself up. Like Heimerdinger doesn't have that responsibility, but he has that longevity. So, and then you know, like he's also not like Zillion, where Zillion just refuses to take responsibility for anything because he can just go to a different timeline. But Hypertinker is taking responsibility, so he fits it perfectly.
Yeah.
I would love to see that angle.
He's our Yoda. All right. Yeah. But with that, enough theory crafting. That was fun. We haven't got to talk about Arcane in a long time. So
yeah,
it was a great surprise to see that trailer drop. And I mean, based on what they've given us, based on all the stories you've heard us tell, we have faith. We have plenty of faith. They haven't led us astray yet. They're crushing it. One thing, do not change the title. Call it Arcane.
Yes.
Plus subtitle.
Yep.
Subtitle could be whatever you want. Just do not change it. I say this because the fighting game's coming out soon, and it's one of the worst names for a fighting game ever. It's called 2KXO or 2XKO. It's not good.
That's awful.
And it should have been called League of Legends Fighter. And Legends of Runeterra should have just been League of Legends trading card game. Like, you gotta understand, the branding thing is, the brand is set. Arcane did something it's a crazy Arcane being Arcane, a League of Legends story, worked. Now people know what Arcane is. Some people know it's Arcane, don't know what the fuck League of Legends
exactly.
is, right?
Like, and
keep the name right. Please don't fuck this up.
Or you know, in some cases, some people are like, "Hey, like they know what Arcane is.
Yeah.
What's this League of Legends? Oh God, I don't want to know any more about that." So keep the title Arcane.
And no matter how much money HBO is offering you, do not give them the rights. And with that, thanks for listening. And we'll be back soon with the next episode.
Everyone take care.